In May 2015, Darla Jackson was involved in a road rage incident on a South Bay freeway where she chased Zacharias Boo, who was riding a motorcycle. Jackson reportedly drove at speeds over 93 miles per hour. She pursued Boo across 4 lanes, getting as close as 5 feet behind him at 80 miles per hour, and eventually hit his motorcycle, pushing it about 300 feet before it crashed. The crash was so severe that Boo's family couldn't recognize him due to his injuries. Jackson was charged and went to trial for voluntary manslaughter. In court, Boo's family and the prosecution pushed for a tougher sentence, highlighting the deliberate nature of Jackson's actions. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison, a middle-range term, to highlight the dangers of road rage.
I'm going to commit you to the Department of Corrections, Ms. Jackson, for the middle term of 6 years for the reasons I've stated.
The sentencing received mixed reactions. Some felt it brought closure, while Boo's family believed it was insufficient. The family pointed out that Jackson had many chances to stop her aggressive chase, but chose not to.
And he's gone. And I miss him. She had every opportunity to change her mind and not chase my brother across 2 freeways.
Pretty hard to understand why someone would get that angry. We still can't get our head around it, Your Honor.
The judge admitted the challenge in proving Jackson's intent, but felt her actions deserved prison time. There were discussions about inconsistencies in sentencing compared to similar cases.
Stab a firefighter in the shoulder, not kill him, just stab him, and you get 9 years in prison. But you run over a member of the military on a motorcycle, and you get 6 years. Justice to me was not served.
I know a lot of awful things were said about me that made a lot of you believe that I did this on purpose. I'm not that.
Jackson apologized to Boo's family during the trial, claiming she never meant to kill him, and argued that describing her actions as intentional was wrong. Melissa Gillette, who had been sober for 10 years, relapsed and was involved in smuggling methamphetamine into Faribault Prison for her boyfriend, Jason Nyberg, at his request. She hid 2 meth-filled gel tablets in her back pocket during a visit to the prison. Nyberg took the drugs and died 3 hours later in his cell. Gillette pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, a charge that implies her actions were dangerously negligent rather than intentionally harmful.
I feel guilty for what happened to him. He was my best friend. I screwed up. I relapsed. I was clean for 10 years.
She was sentenced in Rice County Court by Judge Tom Neville to 86 months in prison, falling within the recommended guideline range of 74 to 103 months.
This is somewhat more serious than the normal case in that you were introducing contraband into a prison setting.
The guidelines for that offense with no criminal history score are 74 to 103 months.
During her sentencing, Gillette expressed deep remorse, stating she never intended to cause Nyberg's death and only wanted to feel loved. The case had a significant emotional impact on Gillette, who broke down in court. She acknowledged the grave mistake she made and its consequences.
I didn't plan to murder him. I didn't plan on going into the prison and then having him die. I made a mistake.
You don't have to have intent to kill in order to be guilty of this crime.
Family friends, Tina and Tony Bartoni, who have been caring for Gillette's 4 children, spoke about the ongoing challenges and the need for continued support.
It's just this cycle, and it just continues and continues, and they just need help.
I'm not a cold-hearted killer.
The court and Gillette's supporters hope she will participate in rehabilitation programs, particularly those for chemical dependency, while serving her sentence at Shakopee Women's Prison. During a court session, a man named McCreed fainted after the judge mentioned he could face the death penalty. As the judge delivered this news, McCreed collapsed into his chair, his eyes rolling back, appearing almost possessed. He was quickly taken out of the courtroom. This reaction prompted some spectators to comment on his dramatic response, with one remarking it seemed like he was possessed, especially given he was involved in the murder of a teenager his own age. McCreed is one of 3 suspects arrested for this crime, which occurred during a heated argument. The prosecution is still considering whether to seek the death penalty in this case. David Morad, who grew up in a wealthy family and attended Seven Hills School, veered off into a life of crime instead of college. He led a robbery gang and got involved with illicit substances and weapons. He was caught trying to break into a house armed with duct tape, a weapon, and a hatchet, ready to possibly torture people. His sister Alexis was also caught and charged. In court, David said his crimes were due to illicit substances and showed regret, seeing his arrest as a wake-up call. He pleaded guilty.
Hard to see, to look at what I've done and who I am. To be quite honest, I'm scared of who I have become.
Alexis also pleaded guilty to attempted burglary and tampering with evidence and was given 3 years of community control. David received a sentence of 80 months, 6 years and 8 months in prison. Some people, including a detective and a victim, felt he should have gotten a longer sentence because of the danger he posed.
The haze of the drugs had worn off as I matured, seeing the lifestyle that I thought was cool. Realized how horrible everything that I've done over the past year is.
I would have been hurt or possibly killed. I didn't know until recently that the hatchet was intended to cut off my fingers or my kids' fingers and torture us into telling them where the drugs were, and of course there weren't any.
I think a lot of people said, well, this kid he's a privileged white kid from the suburbs who goes to an elite private school. You know, I think it would be inherently wrong for us to punish him unduly or give him a harsher sentence because of that.
His parents, especially his dad, a doctor, were very upset and shocked in court. The judge hoped David would join drug rehab programs in prison. There was also talk about whether his background led to a lighter sentence.
For David John, he's my son. I love him and we're very sorry. And just like his sister, Alexis, he is precious to us. Sorry.
Take your time, sir.
Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for giving him a chance.
A lot of people use the word sociopath. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't determine that. But I do see a lot of remorse and a lot of change in people when sentencing day comes.
After his release, David will be on probation, and breaking its terms could add another 10 years to his sentence. Eric McCulla was accused of fatally stabbing his niece, Tyesha McCulla, and wounding Antoine Lee in an incident in July. The situation escalated during a court session when Antoine Lee, both a witness and a victim of McCulla's previous alleged attack, emotionally attacked McCulla. This led to a dramatic courtroom brawl that was captured during the hearing.
Back up, sir! Back up, sir! Sir, back up!
Take him out. Take him out of the courtroom.
Calm down, baby. Calm down. Put on. Come on down, baby. Get ready to go. All right, go. Gentlemen, sit down in that court.
Get out.
In or out?
Out. Everybody out of the courtroom. Not everybody.
Do not stand up. Sit up. Sit right there.
I've got some more officers coming.
Yes, sir. Just stay right here. Don't move. Sit controller. Let me clear. Going back down. Sergeant Jackson, sit control.
We've got some folks out in the hallway who are out of control too, so watch them.
Sergeant Jackson, sit control. We're going to be bringing those two inmates back. I need the jail locked down. Stop all inmate movement. Assume emergency traffic. Set it up, lock it down, dude.
We also have some folks out in the hallway that we need to watch.
Is it locked down? The elevator locked down?
so make sure they got the other guy across the street too. McCulla. Make sure he's across the street.
He's across the street. The Lord's taking him over. We need to make sure he's secure.
Before we could get him going.
This incident took place during a preliminary hearing, and because of the brawl, extra precautions were taken in later sessions to avoid more disruptions. Ultimately, McCulla was found guilty of manslaughter for the death of his niece, while the charges for stabbing Lee were dropped. 18-year-old high school student Fernando Salgado pleaded not guilty to charges related to an incident where he allegedly assaulted another teen with a metal rebar. During the court session, Salgado learned that his bail was set at $300,000, causing visible distress. His family reacted emotionally to the bail decision, highlighting their shock and disagreement with the accusations.
You know, we're going to be selling watermelons. Please come and support Nando because he's not that person.
The case deeply divided the community, with some supporting Salgado, a teacher, and 2 other implicated boys. Salgado struck a plea bargain, agreeing to testify against Emmanuel De La Rosa, another teacher involved. As part of the deal, Salgado received a reduced charge of assault with a deadly weapon and a sentence of 3 years of felony probation, along with 180 days in county jail on weekends, with credit for 24 days already served. When he was 16, Lance Dyer got involved in a police chase while driving a stolen car. After ditching the car, he allegedly aimed a weapon at a Dayton police officer while trying to run away. The officer fired at Dyer in defense, hitting him in the hand. Dyer was later tried and found guilty of threatening a police officer with a weapon, which led to his sentencing. During the trial and sentencing, the court stressed how serious his actions were, especially because he endangered the officer's life. The judge, Dennis Adkins, gave Dyer an 11-year prison sentence, noting that Dyer hadn't shown any regret or acceptance of his actions, which influenced the harsh sentence. The judge also mentioned that Dyer was lucky to be alive and not killed during the altercation, which is often the case in such situations.
I can't think of anything more serious than someone pointing a loaded weapon at a police officer. You are lucky to be standing here in front of me today instead of being on the ground.
Dyer's mother couldn't believe her son would point a weapon at an officer. She argued that if he really had, the police might have used lethal force, and questioned why that didn't happen. She planned to appeal the sentence, showing the family's determination to fight the conviction and their belief in his innocence or unfair treatment.
Still don't believe that he pointed a gun at a police officer because my son would be dead. You know, police officers don't shoot warning shots. They are trying to shoot to kill. So if you're trying to shoot to kill, then if my son pointed a 9mm at you twice, why isn't my son dead?
The sentencing also caused a strong emotional reaction from Dyer's family, especially his sister, who became so upset that she had to be removed from the courtroom by force.
Is there anything further from the state?
And that's man, my brother got 13 years old. Stop.
She wasn't charged for her outburst, but she was banned from the courthouse. Stacy Rose Jr., 18, was involved in a fatal incident where he stabbed Robert Briscoe, a father attempting to break up a fight. The conflict began when Briscoe's son Tyler allegedly took Adderall from Rose without paying. Seeking retribution for the unpaid substances, Rose and his friends confronted Tyler at the Briscoe family home in Osier Township. During the altercation, as Robert Briscoe tried to intervene, Rose stabbed him fatally in the neck. The sentencing for this case was postponed by Judge Lawrence Stalin, who needed extra time after extensive testimony to weigh the arguments from both sides.
To give me more opportunity to consider the arguments of the parties, to research the law regarding the guidelines, and an opportunity to reflect about what my sentence.
The defense pushed for a lighter sentence of 1 year, labeling it manslaughter, while the prosecution advocated for at least 10 years, underlining the severity of the crime. Judge Stalin took 2 hours during the sentencing hearing to discuss his rationale, ultimately sentencing Rose to a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of 15 years in prison.
Therefore, it's the sentence of this court, Mr. Rose, that you be sentenced to a minimum of 10 years to a maximum of 15 years in prison.
Rose's family, particularly his mother, believed the sentence was unjust and planned to appeal, arguing the incident was accidental.
My son wasn't a drug dealer. They went over there and stole them pills out of his car.
The defense attorney suggested that many jurors felt Rose was not guilty of intentional murder.
My client obviously is not happy with that. There will be an appeal on the entire case. Most of those jurors, I feel, thought Mr. Rose was actually not guilty. They realized it was an accident.
I'm pleased with the verdict as it was. I think it should have been a longer sentencing than that, but we'll take what we got. He laughed, he loved, he shared. He was always there for everybody and anybody when you needed him.
On the other side, Sandy Briscoe, Robert's sister, expressed both relief that the trial was over and dissatisfaction with the length of the sentence, reflecting on her brother's character and the family's loss. Dexter Johnson, at 18, was involved in the 2007 carjacking and murders of Maria Aparice and Huyen Go in Harris County. He and his accomplices abducted the couple, leading to Aparice being assaulted and both victims fatally injured. He flew into a rage in a Houston courtroom after a Harris County jury sentenced him to death.
Dexter Darnell Johnson, the jury has found you guilty of capital murder. In accordance with the laws of the state of Texas, this court hereby assesses your punishment of death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to complete your jury service. I'm going to meet you in the jury room.
All rise.
Dexter Johnson began knocking down chairs before he was tackled by about a dozen courtroom officers.
He's just a god! It's a god! See you, ladies and gentlemen.
His case has seen numerous appeals, focusing on claims of intellectual disability, with his execution being delayed multiple times as courts reviewed these claims. Most recently, a federal judge halted his execution to allow further investigation into these appeals. Ryan Brady, a 34-year-old driver, was involved in a hit-and-run that killed 62-year-old Irina Hyde as she was leaving her job at a nursing home. The collision was so strong that it knocked the grill off his car. According to prosecutors and court records, Brady was distracted because he was listening to music and looking at his phone when it alerted him, which caused him not to notice that he had hit someone. Although Brady claimed he didn't realize a collision had occurred, he drove away without stopping to help or call the police. He was later arrested and charged in connection with the hit and run. During the court hearing, the emotional impact on Irina's family was clear. Her husband, Tony Hyde, was so upset that he shouted at Brady and had to be escorted out of the courtroom.
Murderer! Sorry. No.
Their daughter also collapsed during the hearing, clearly overwhelmed by the situation. The judge set Brady's bail at $10,000 as the case moved forward.
Big enough to cover what he did to my wife. The anguish, look at my family and my daughter-in-law and my family's suffering, which goes on and on.
While Brady's arrest brought some sense of justice to the family, they recognized that it wouldn't take away their pain, and they faced a tough road ahead. Johnny Lawrence Williams Jr., also known by the nickname Casper, was involved in a violent and tragic incident on April 5, 2016, in St. Augustine, Florida, where he murdered Jamie Antoinette Wilson and K1 Javante Murray at separate locations. Williams, who was reportedly in a relationship with Jamie Wilson, fired her in front of her son before killing Murray shortly after at a different site. On the same day, Williams also fired at 3 other people who survived the attacks. These events led to a manhunt that ended with his arrest. Williams faced multiple charges, including 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, attempted murder, grand theft auto, and child abuse.
Why? So sorry, my kids. You get locked up for the rest of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, I recognize this is a very emotional situation, but I need you all to please be quiet.
Most of all, I want to say sorry for my mom for letting her down. That's it.
All right, thank you. Williams, based on the indictment presented by the grand jury, and you're having entered a plea of guilty to count 1 to the charge of first-degree premeditated murder, a capital offense, is the order of judgment and sentence of this court that you be committed to the Department of Corrections for the rest of your natural life, for a period of your natural life, without parole. That as to count 2, based on the indictment filed by the grand jury, and you're having entered a plea of guilty to the capital offense of first-degree premeditated murder and/or felony murder with a firearm, is the order of judgment and sentence of this court that you be adjudicated guilty of that offense, as you were adjudicated guilty of count 1, and that you be committed to the Department of Corrections for a term of your natural life. That as to count 3, you're having entered a plea of guilty to the life felony charge of attempted first-degree murder with a firearm. Is the order of judgment and sentence of this court that you be adjudicated guilty of that offense, that you be committed to the Department of Corrections for a term of your natural life. That, Mr. Williams, did you hear and did you understand that sentence? Was that consistent with what you understood the plea agreement to be?
During his sentencing in the courtroom, emotions were intense, and his mother caused a disturbance.
No matter what. No matter what. I did. I did. I want to know. Love you, no matter what. You failed. You failed your son. No, I have not failed my son. Let me do what my son did. I'm going to love my son down to his death. I love him.
Williams was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a sentence that underscored the gravity of his actions and their devastating impact on the community. In Royal Palm Beach, Florida, a significant altercation unfolded in the parking lot of a public supermarket involving Alexandria Thomas and her boyfriend, Joseph Genovese. The argument between Thomas and Genovese escalated when Thomas, who had an 8-inch knife in her purse, stabbed Genovese in the chest. He was quickly taken to the hospital in critical condition because of the serious nature of his injuries. Thomas was arrested and charged with the stabbing. During her initial court appearance, the severity of the situation deeply affected both Thomas and her mother.
He's in a medically-induced coma right now because of the seriousness of his injuries.
Thomas was seen crying uncontrollably, while her mother was so overwhelmed that she collapsed and required support from a sheriff's deputy. In court, Thomas expressed that her intention was not to seriously harm Genovese, but merely to stop his advances by poking him with the knife.
I know she's very worried about the victim, who was her boyfriend, who she loved very much. It's an unfortunate incident. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Despite her claims, she was detained, facing severe charges for the stabbing. At last update, Joseph Genovese remained in critical condition at the hospital. Samantha Grigg, a teenage lead singer from a local band in Saline, was involved in the murder of a University of Michigan student named Dustin Frola. The crime occurred on February 15, 2014, when Frola was beaten with brass knuckles, robbed, and left beside I-69. Grigg was the driver that night and transported two other teenagers, 18-year-old Tyrell Brett and 16-year-old Brendan Heem, from Saline to East Lansing, aiming to rob Frola. She later pleaded guilty to charges of unarmed robbery and manslaughter in connection with Frola's death. During the trial, the devastating impact on Frola's family was highlighted by heartfelt testimonies from his aunt, sister, and stepmother, who spoke about the tremendous loss, especially to his daughter Melody.
You took a son, you took a brother, you took my nephew. Most, but not least, you took a father from his daughter.
I'm going to miss his daughter Melody's first steps, her first words, her birthdays, her graduations, her joys, her heartaches. She'll never get to know her daddy.
Now we live knowing that on the night of February 15th, 2014, while we were inside our warm houses, Dustin was left to die on the side of the road, and there was nothing we could do to help him.
The court sentenced Grigg to 6 to 15 years in prison, reflecting the gravity of her actions despite her lawyer's pleas for leniency, arguing she was just the driver.
You helped to murder him, strip his clothes, his money, his dignity, but not his faith.
Grigg, known as a straight-A student and talented musician, surprised everyone with her involvement in such a serious crime. She expressed deep regret in court, particularly saddened by the impact on another musician's family.
I would like to extend my deepest remorse to the family of the victim. He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart, and I wish I could take it back every day.
Grigg also shared her hopes for the future, aspiring to go to college and become a music teacher to possibly make a positive difference in the lives of children. Let's look into the trial of Michael Jace, known for his role as a police officer on the TV show The Shield, who was tried for the murder of his wife, April, in Los Angeles Superior Court. Jace faced second-degree murder charges for harming his wife at their home, resulting in a profound loss for her family, particularly her mother. The trial lasted a week, and the jury delivered a verdict based on the evidence presented.
Cry on her birthday. I cry on May 19th. My only daughter was shot and killed on May 19, 2014, but we both died that night.
The tragic event was witnessed by the couple's two young sons. It came out during the trial that Jace used a revolver owned by April's father. Although Jace did not testify in his own defense, he had earlier told detectives that he had planned to use the weapon on himself but couldn't go through with it. Instead, he decided to fire his wife in the leg to inflict pain.
Manslaughter. It doesn't, neither verdict brings her back. But I thought it was important, and I hear that it's important for the family to know that I didn't commit first-degree murder. There was no premeditated anything.
Deputy District Attorney Tanaz Mokayev argued that Michael Jace's killing of his wife was premeditated. She presented to the jury that Jace waited for his wife to come home, struck her in the back, and taunted her before harming each of her legs. Their 10-year-old son testified, recounting that he heard his father say, "If you like running, then run to heaven," right before firing the second time. The jury convicted Jace of second-degree murder. He displayed minimal emotion as the verdict was announced, only biting his bottom lip. The Jace family, however, expressed satisfaction with the trial's outcome. Savoy Brown, April Jace's adult son, shared that it was tough for the family to watch Jace during the trial and expressed hope that Jace would show remorse during sentencing. The trial also revealed that Jace was upset about his wife's wish for a divorce and suspected her of having an affair, although there was no evidence provided to support these claims. Deputy District Attorney Mokayev stated that Jace could face 40 years to life in prison.
Personal discharge of a firearm causing her death, the court imposes a consecutive 25 years to life. The sentence imposed today is 40 years to life.
Jace's defense lawyer, Jamin Hicks, admitted that his client regretted killing his wife. Hicks mentioned that Jace might speak at his sentencing hearing to express his remorse. However, he also intended to show respect for the family of April Jace.
No justification for my actions that night at all. I'm profoundly sorry for the pain that I caused everyone.
Michael Jace, known for his role in The Shield, also appeared in films like Planet of the Apes, Boogie Nights, and Forrest Gump. After the incident, he surrendered himself to the police and remained in custody until his sentencing. He was ultimately sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. We're at the Highland County Courthouse in Greenfield, Ohio. Over at the far side, you can see police taking 34-year-old Nicholas Garrison into custody. He's just been found guilty of having methamphetamine and a fentanyl-related compound, both considered serious offenses, along with a forfeiture specification. Just before this, Garrison was sentenced to 2 years for each count of possessing methamphetamine and the fentanyl compound. With the sentences to run, one after the other, he told the court, "I didn't plan this. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, and I really regret it." Ironically, his next action was also a spontaneous one. Now let's check what really happened. Garrison was in the process of being handcuffed by a deputy and bailiff when he found an opportunity to break away and bolt from the Highland County Courthouse. Garrison waits to make his break as both deputies turn their backs to him. He speeds past all the officers in the court as they are no match for his rapid acceleration. The courtroom security cameras show Garrison taking off and running through the courtroom and out an exit door. The door leads to a set of stairs, and Garrison is seen hastily running down them. The bailiff dives headfirst over the banister as he tries to grab the fleeing Garrison. The bailiff, unable to stop Garrison, broke 4 of his ribs and suffered a minor concussion when he landed on the stairs. He was seen going above and beyond to try and cut him off at the shortest path, and unfortunately for the bailiff, he also got injured. Nicholas Garrison would elude police for almost 4 days before being captured at a motel in Clinton County. The sheriff reported that anonymous tips were given to the officers, which helped to fish out Garrison from his hiding spot. 29-year-old Amber Ward was responsible for housing and protecting Garrison while he was on the run and, in the words of an indictment returned against her on December 1st, 2020, did aid and abet and did harbor and conceal Nicholas Garrison in the days that followed his escape. She was also scheduled for a hearing in her case, but willingly agreed to plead guilty to the charges facing her, which include a 3rd-degree felony for complicity to escape and 1 count of failure to appear. Nicholas Garrison, 34, of Hillsborough, appeared before visiting Judge Daniel Hogan and pled guilty to 1 count of escape, a 3rd-degree felony, and 1 count of assault on a peace officer, a 4th-degree felony in connection with his escape from the 2nd-story courtroom. Garrison was sentenced to 12 months on each count of escape and assault on a peace officer to be served consecutively. In Tampa, Florida, Dante Morris is on trial for the fatal attack on 2 police officers during a traffic stop in Tampa Bay. He faces 2 counts of 1st-degree murder. In June 2010, officers David Curtis and Jeffrey Kokab pulled Morris over, unaware of the tragic outcome that awaited them. Morris attacked and fatally wounded both officers on the spot. As his trial starts, the courtroom is filled with those eager to see the outcome. Among the witnesses is his ex-girlfriend, Ashley Price, who is testifying against him.
Can you please point to where he is and describe an article of clothing?
With a red shirt. That he did it.
That he did it?
Yes.
Did you know what he was talking about?
Oh, yes.
Had he referred you to something, to look at something?
To watch the news.
Ashley testified that Morris had told her details about the incident, including where he attacked the officers and their race.
Did he tell you where he shot them, what part of their bodies?
Yes.
And where did he tell you he shot them?
In the head.
And did he use a descriptive term for them that let you know what race they were?
Yes.
And what term was that?
Crackers.
Here's a statement from a family member. Officer Kokab's sister made sure to tell Morris how she felt about the situation.
I will never, ever be able to make new memories with my brother, now or ever again.
Here's what Officer Curtis's mother felt.
Now ask this court to put him to death immediately without hesitation.
This case attracted significant public attention and scrutiny, partly due to the release of the key piece of evidence, the police dashcam footage. Some believed it raised questions about potential compromises within the police force, while others argued it was done to protect the families of the slain officers.
That's count 1 for the 1st-degree premeditated murder of David Curtis. The court imposes a sentence of death. As to count 2 for the 1st-degree premeditated murder of Jeffrey Kokab, the court imposes a sentence of death.
Morris appears dejected as he leaves the courtroom, walking with the demeanor of someone resigned to the certainty of his impending death. We're at Laconia District Court in New Hampshire for the arraignment of 24-year-old Ronnie Amadon, who stands accused of threatening his mother with an axe. He faces a charge of felony criminal, threatening with a deadly weapon. Amadon allegedly threatened his mother with the axe after she refused to buy him cigarettes. Police responded to a domestic disturbance call involving Amadon and his mother. Upon arrival, officers found Amadon visibly upset in the living room, where he had reportedly threatened his mother multiple times with a double-edged axe. His mother informed police that the axe had been placed in a closet. During attempts to remove Amadon from the courtroom, he refused to cooperate, leading to a 5-minute recess. When sheriffs tried to assist him, Amadon became physically aggressive, telling them to "get thee off of me." An unidentified woman, believed to be Amadon's sister, also intervened, shouting obscenities before being escorted out of the courtroom by another bystander.
No! Hey! Get the fuck off!
While under arrest, Amadon reportedly disclosed a prior diagnosis of developmental disability and a mood disorder. An evaluation would be conducted to assess his competency to stand trial, and the authenticity of his conditions would be confirmed by a professional psychiatrist in court. Laconia prosecutor Jim Sawyer requested a cash bail, characterizing the incident as a minor event that triggered Amadon, prompting him to grab the axe.
Rose out of an issue over his mother refusing to buy him cigarettes or not being able to afford to buy him cigarettes, and that upset Ronnie.
The judge ordered Amadon to abstain from possessing weapons and instructed him to report to Lakes Region Community Services. Bail was set at $5,000, payable in cash or surety. We're in Pensacola, Florida, covering a rare case of a father being killed by his sons. Brothers Alex and Derek King are charged with third-degree murder for killing their 40-year-old father, Terry King. They beat him to death with a baseball bat while he was sleeping.
You are currently 13 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
On November 26, 2001, Alex went with Derek to kill their father using an aluminum baseball bat. After the murder, they tried to cover up their crime by setting their family home on fire. A family friend, Ricky Chavez, was found guilty of helping them after the fact. He hid the boys in his trailer and washed the blood off their clothes.
Raise your right hand to be sworn, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
During the trial, the boys frequently changed their stories, which didn't help their case. At first, they said they killed their father to stop his mental and physical abuse. Then, they insisted they acted alone. Later, they claimed that Ricky Chavez convinced them to commit the murder. Eventually, they said Chavez was the one who killed their father and then convinced them to take the blame. The judge sentenced Derek King to 8 years in prison and his younger brother Alex to 7 years. In Essex County Superior Court, 35-year-old Bloomfield police officer Shaun Quarter faced several charges, including conspiracy to commit official misconduct, tampering with public records, falsifying public records, and false swearing. On June 7, 2012, Officer Cordier responded to a call at Marcus Jeter's home after a verbal argument. Jeter left voluntarily, but was followed by Cordier onto the Garden State Parkway, where he was stopped. Cordier tried to remove Jeter from his vehicle, but Jeter, fearing for his life, refused. Cordier called for backup, and when they arrived, they rammed Jeter's car. Cordier then broke the window and, with help from the backup officers, forcibly removed Jeter from the vehicle. The officers then filed police reports falsely claiming Jeter tried to grab Corder's weapon and had attacked one of the backup officers. Jeter was charged with eluding, resisting arrest, aggravated assault, and attempting to disarm an officer. Later, new evidence led to all charges against Jeter being dropped and an investigation into the officer's actions, resulting in a grand jury indictment. Before his sentencing, Officer Shaun Quarter addressed the judge in Essex County Courthouse.
I love my children more than anything in the world, and I know they need me. I don't want them to have to suffer, switch schools, lose friends, lose the house that they're raised in.
Marcus Jeter, the victim in the case, was present in the courthouse and also shared his thoughts about Shaun Quarter and the entire ordeal.
To say that I resisted. He had a choice. I'm not saying that that messes his character up. I'm not saying that he's not a good guy. I'm just saying that in a situation like this where he has an obligation, a moral obligation to tell the truth, he chose not to.
After being convicted of official misconduct and tampering with records, former Bloomfield police officer was sentenced by Essex County Superior Court Judge Michael Raven to 5 years in state prison. At the Clark County District Court in Las Vegas, Michael McDonald faces accusations of breaching his parole terms. McDonald, familiar with legal proceedings, was previously out on bond for charges including forgery, burglary, and perjury. His contentious divorce concluded with his ex-wife obtaining a no-contact order against him. Despite this, he sent gifts to his children through his ex-wife, which the state claims violated the no-contact order and his parole conditions.
Yes, that's it. No nasty notes with them.
However, the judge, familiar with Michael McDonald's history, was not convinced by his actions.
Note that back in family court, he constantly violated orders. He would always insist that the order said something else. I'm not sure that he is capable of controlling himself because he wasn't before. So based upon that, I am granting the motion.
After the judge made the decision, 2 court-marshals approached Michael McDonald with handcuffs. However, Michael didn't surrender easily. He began to resist, leading to a fierce struggle in the courtroom.
Mike, calm down. Mike, calm down. Relax. Mike, relax.
I'm not listening about this. Come on.
Mike, calm down.
The scuffle escalated to the point where even his own attorney intervened, saying, "Mike, put the handcuffs on, or I'll put them on myself." More court officers arrived to help restrain Mike, and he was eventually removed from the courtroom. However, before he was taken out, he incurred an additional charge for resisting arrest. He was subsequently sentenced to 24 to 68 months in prison. Now let's go to this Philadelphia court where a suspected rapist is on trial for a brutal crime. In November 2016, Titus Lee was accused of attacking 2 University of North Carolina Wilmington students in their apartment complex. He faced charges of 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of first-degree rape, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and first-degree burglary. According to the male victim's testimony, Lee, wearing a mask and holding a weapon, attacked him and his girlfriend while they were on their apartment porch on Litchfield Way. Lee allegedly tied them up in a closet and raped the female victim. The crime lasted for hours, and the victims said they were forced to go to an ATM to withdraw money for Lee. After the attacker left, the victims drove to the male victim's parents' house in Cherry Grove, South Carolina for help. They were terrified and traumatized. Lee was arrested 3 weeks later in Philadelphia by U.S. Marshals. During his trial, the jury found Lee guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced him to over 100 years in prison. 5 years after the ordeal, the victims finally got justice, and the female victim read her impact statement in court.
I'd like you to know that the man sitting in that seat is responsible for my life being significantly harder than it was ever supposed to be. My innocence is now gone. I found myself harboring feelings of uncertainty and fear just by doing small things like going to the store or meeting a friend for dinner. Things that are supposed to be easier now are hard because I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, expecting a man like him to be behind.
District Attorney Ben David stated that Titus Lee will spend the rest of his life in prison. For the career prosecutors and detectives who handled this case, few of us can remember a worse crime of violence where the victims survived to testify. This was a hate-filled, hours-long crime spree that was gratuitous in its evil. At the Multnomah County Courthouse, 40-year-old white supremacist Russell Orlando Cordier faced arraignment for allegedly targeting and fatally striking African-American teenager Larnell Bruce Jr. with his vehicle. Cordier was charged with murder, second-degree intimidation, hit and run driving, and failure to perform duties as a driver. This incident marked Oregon's first hate crime murder conviction in 30 years. Cordier is affiliated with the European Kindred, a white supremacist prison gang primarily active within the Oregon corrections system, which he joined in 2003. He prominently displayed the gang's initials and logo tattooed on his leg, and on the day of the incident, he wore a European Kindred cap bearing the hate group's insignia. According to official reports, Cordier and Bruce became involved in an altercation at a 7-Eleven parking lot in Gresham, Oregon, near Portland. Witness statements indicated that Bruce initially had the upper hand in a fistfight, during which he allegedly slammed Cordier into a store window, breaking it. Despite Bruce wielding a machete and Cordier retrieving an aerosol can from his nearby Jeep, witnesses claimed neither weapon was used. Bruce then decided to walk away from the confrontation. However, Cordier, accompanied by his girlfriend Colleen Hunt in a Jeep Wrangler, pursued Bruce at Hunt's encouragement. Cordier fatally struck Bruce with the SUV in what police responded to as a hit-and-run incident. Bruce succumbed to his injuries at a nearby hospital. Prosecutor David Hannon highlighted these details in his opening statement to the jurors.
Here, hunted and chased
Larnell Bruce with his girlfriend's large red Jeep, not once, but twice.
He continued to describe how Cordier took a calm, efficient, and deadly action that ended Larnell Bruce's life.
He intended to kill Mr. Bruce, again, not once, but as the video showed, you twice. He accomplished that goal with cold, efficient, and lethal action behind the wheel of that red Jeep.
During the trial, prosecutor David Hammond described Cordier as a violent individual unapologetic about his racist views, emphasizing his active participation in the European Kindred white supremacist group while in prison. Hammond stated, Russell Cordier's involvement with the European Kindred gang wasn't a necessity. It stemmed from his racist desire to belong to a brotherhood. In defense, attorneys Kevin Sully and John Robb argued that Larnell Bruce initiated the confrontation by suddenly attacking Cordier without provocation on the night in question. They claimed Cordier and his girlfriend had simply driven to the 7-Eleven on East Burnside to hang out. However, Hammond countered, asserting, there's no evidence that Bruce started the fight outside the store. He pointed to witnesses and surveillance footage showing Bruce peacefully standing outside until Cordier arrived and parked, after which a fight erupted.
Neither Mr. Cordier nor Ms. Hunt knew that night as they drove toward the 7-Eleven was that there waiting at the store was a group of people who were about to set in motion a series of actually catastrophic consequences.
All 12 jurors found Cordier guilty of murder and failing to fulfill his duties as a driver. While 2 jurors objected to the intimidation charge, Cordier was still convicted based on a split jury verdict. Oregon is unique in allowing convictions on felony charges other than murder without a unanimous jury decision. During Cordier's trial, his then-girlfriend, Colleen Hunt, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. She acknowledged aiding Cordier and facilitating Larnell Bruce Jr.'s death by allowing him to use her Jeep Wrangler SUV. Hunt accepted a 10-year sentence as part of her plea deal. In court, Cordier became emotional but chose not to speak at his sentencing, following advice from his lawyers. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 28 years. This sentence was added to a 4-year term Cordier was already serving for his involvement in a 2015 bars assault. In total, he faces 32 years in prison before being eligible for parole. In Cuyahoga County, a 16-year-old from Cleveland named Jaquille Cleveland pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, aggravated robbery, and other charges related to a fatal robbery in 2015. Cleveland had killed a man from New York who was visiting Cleveland to see his girlfriend. As part of a plea deal, the prosecutors dropped a more serious charge of aggravated murder, which could have led to a life sentence. Instead, he agreed to a prison term of 20 to 25 years. After hearing impact statements from the victim's family, the remorseful teenager apologized to both the victim's family and his own mother.
I apologize to the family. I'm sorry if I did. I know it was wrong. Now I'm here to take my punishment for what I did. I want to apologize to my mom. I'm sorry for that. I did way better than that. I'm sorry for breaking your heart.
Shortly after, the common pleas judge sentenced him to 24 years in prison. In Fulton County, Chief Judge Earl Glanville is presiding over a murder trial. On August 18, 2018, Jaden Myrick, then 17, robbed and fatally injured 34-year-old Christian Broder, a husband and father. Broder was leaving a wedding with his brother and friends when Myrick approached them with a weapon outside the Capital City Country Club in Northeast Atlanta. Myrick, an admitted YSL gang member, demanded their belongings. After taking their valuables, he fired at Broder in the chest and fled. Broder was taken to a nearby hospital, but died from his injuries. This is the same Young Slime Life gang that Grammy-winning rapper Young Thug is suspected of being a member of, as he is currently on trial in Fulton County District and has been in police custody since 2022. Prosecutors are linking other suspected gang members to certain lyrics in Young Thug's rap music.
You acknowledge that you've been accused of and arrested for robbing women?
Yes.
You acknowledge that you are the same person referred to as Tick in the song by Young Thug entitled You, in the verse She Getting Robbed by Tick?
Yes.
Myrick Myrick displayed carefree behavior in court and refused to apologize to the victim's family. Prosecutor Chris pointed out that Myrick showed no respect for Broder's family and refused to take responsibility for his actions. When asked if he had anything to say, Myrick remained silent. Broder's family gave emotional impact statements at the sentencing hearing, describing the devastating impact of his death on their lives. During the trial, Broder's father had pleaded with the judge to deny Myrick bond and keep him behind bars throughout the proceedings.
I just cannot understand why he would be allowed bond and to be released to the public.
After hearing testimony from both sides, the judge sentenced Myrick to life in prison without the possibility of parole, along with 3 additional life sentences for his role in the armed robbery and assault of Broder's brother and friends. At the Broward County Courthouse, Judge John Hurley encountered 80-year-old Dolores Sheenus. Sheenus had ended up in jail for resisting arrest after violating a restraining order filed by her ex-husband.
Mr. Sheenus, Abraham Arthur Sheenus, and I have been legally divorced for 31 years, and I have the papers to prove it.
Mrs. Sheenus is given the chance to explain herself.
Both resided at 20 Bend, and he paid for the apartment entirely. His assumption is because he paid for the apartment, he's entitled to do as he pleases.
But Judge Hurley cuts her off and addresses the real point.
I'm telling you.
I need to keep you away from him, all right?
I haven't bothered him for 31 years. Why would I bother him now?
Judge John Hurley then decides to release Dolores Sheenus on a personal bond, with one condition: she must agree to stay away from her ex-husband.
You are not allowed to call him, text him, email him. You are to stay 500 feet from him at all times. That's where he lives, where he works, anywhere in between. Ma'am, you're getting a second chance on this case. I don't particularly feel like keeping an 80-year-old woman in the jail who has no criminal record. But this is your second warning. Don't go around him again.
Dolores Sheenus readily accepts the terms laid out by Judge Hurley and proceeds to swear on it right there in the Broward County Courthouse. While swearing, a particular phrase stood out to Judge Hurley.
Swear to God and all that's Tony on a stack of Bibles, I will never go near him, talk to him, call him, or even look at him.
What was the first thing you were going to swear on besides the Bibles? All that's holy. What?
I don't remember.
Oh.
What?
All that's holy.
All that's
holy. Yeah.
After identifying that phrase, the judge was not prepared for the next cheeky remark that came out of the defendant's mouth. He was so stunned that he asked her if she had ever done stand-up comedy before.
Oh, all that's holy, yes, sir. I didn't recognize your twang.
Ma'am, have you ever thought of doing a stand-up routine? Have you ever thought about that?
I did. Well, if you pay me good money, sweetheart, I'll be there. I'm really short of funds.
Ma'am, I gotta tell you something. You seem like you have a great wit about you.
I do, sir.
Yeah, so...
I mean, sweetheart, that's the only thing I have.
Joining in on the fun, the judge asked Dolores Sheenus to critique his judicial duties, and she wittily poked fun at him.
Let me ask you something, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
How have I done as a judge today? So far, how am I doing?
Not bad, but you could do better.
Can we get a drum roll?
With the case all but wrapped up, Judge Hurley and the rest of the Broward County Courthouse anticipated one last punchline from Dolores Sheenus, and they were not disappointed.
I gotta tell you, you brightened my day, ma'am. All right?
To which she replied, "That's what the last guy said, and then he sued me." The entire courthouse erupted in laughter, with Judge Hurley even having to put his head on the table. In New Hampshire, at the Nashua County Courthouse, 21-year-old Christopher Gribble was arraigned for orchestrating a home invasion in Mount Vernon that resulted in the murder of a woman and severe injury to her daughter. Alongside first-degree murder, he was convicted of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit burglary, and tampering with witnesses. Gribble and 3 accomplices broke into the home of David and Kimberly Cates. Authorities stated they had no personal connection to the victims and intended to rob the house armed with a knife and machete. On the tragic night, with David Cates away on a business trip, Gribble and his accomplices found Kimberly and her 11-year-old daughter Jamie in the master bedroom, brutally stabbing them multiple times before leaving them for dead. Kimberly succumbed to her injuries, while Jamie miraculously survived despite life-threatening wounds. All suspects were apprehended after an acquaintance of Gribble anonymously tipped off the police. At trial, Gribble pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. When he testified, the prosecution sought to demonstrate that he was mentally sound at the time of the heinous crime.
You're saying you're legally insane.
I'm saying as my defense, yes.
Do you not believe in your defense?
Gribble recounted every minute and intricate detail of what occurred that night. Legal analysts argued that his detailed account suggested he was not insane and must have been of sound mind. Here's what Gribble said about the incident.
I think it was at that point that Mrs. Cates woke up. I couldn't see too well into the room. I generally have reasonable night vision, but I mean, the iPod was right there ruining my vision. I remember seeing like some form sit up on what was to me the left side of the bed.
He proceeded to describe the horrific details of the murder.
At one point, I heard like a and then some of the screaming stopped, and not long after that, I kind of reached in and stabbed at the form in front of me.
Even more chillingly, he continued with bone-chilling details.
Were you stabbing the person at the same time that Steve was hacking?
Oh, he never stopped. He just kept going and going and going. It's not like he stopped in between. I just reached in.
So you were doing it at the same time that he was hacking with you?
Yes.
David Cates, the struck husband and father of the victims, was present in court. He remarked, "This verdict isn't justice, but I can only hope that justice will catch up with you soon." Cates then called Gribble a worthless coward and condemned him for the enduring pain inflicted upon his daughter Jamie, who, Cates said, will suffer for the rest of her life because of what happened to her and her mother. After reviewing all the evidence, the jury deliberated for 2 hours before finding Gribble guilty on all charges. Later that day, Judge Jillian Abramson sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, an automatic sentence in first-degree murder cases. In Fresno County Superior Court, 39-year-old Muhammad Cory faced charges for a racially motivated attack in Fresno, California that resulted in the fatal attacks on 3 white men. He was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder, 3 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, 3 counts of attempted murder, for attacking individuals he missed, 1 count of attacking an occupied vehicle, and 1 count of weapon possession. On April 18, 2017, Cory, who self-identifies as a black supremacist, went on a spree targeting white men, which he claimed was driven by his hatred for white people, especially white men. Prior to the events, Cory's social media was filled with posts about reparations, black separatism, and derogatory terms for white people. The incident began about 5 days before the main attack when Cory was visiting a woman at a Motel 6 in central Fresno. A policy requiring all visitors to register led Carl Williams, an unarmed security guard, to their room. As Williams was escorting Cory and the woman to the office, an argument broke out. Cory then stepped aside, turned around, and struck Williams multiple times, causing immediate fatality. Cory escaped and hid on the rooftop of a nearby 7-Eleven, later moving to hide by a dumpster near a school, and altered his appearance over the weekend. 4 days later, while out shopping, Cory recognized himself on a news broadcast in a Starbucks as a suspect in Williams' murder. Deciding against being captured for a single murder, he resolved to kill as many white men as he could. He embarked on a violent spree in downtown Fresno, discharging 17 times, fatally injuring 3 men, missing 3 others, and attacking a vehicle. He first targeted a utility truck, causing fatal injuries to Zachary Randalls. He spared the Hispanic driver. Minutes later, he attacked Mark Gassett, and after Gassett fell, Cory struck him twice more, causing fatal injuries. Cory then reloaded and fired at 3 more white men, ultimately killing David Jackson after chasing him down. During his first court appearance, Cory made erratic statements and warned of increasing natural disasters in the U.S. Due to his behavior, criminal proceedings were paused, and the court ordered a psychiatric evaluation for him.
Black people go with our own land and reparations. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell.
His defense lawyer also emphasized his client's dramatic behavior and said that Cory is mentally unstable, arguing that he couldn't have planned those murders in advance.
We have a confused, mentally ill man not deliberating not considering, acting impulsively, and unable to premeditate.
Cory testified in court that he willingly attacked and caused the fatal injury to Carl Williams. He admitted to going on a rampage afterwards, attacking and fatally injuring Zachary Randles, Mark Gassett, and David Jackson, and also targeting 3 other white men. Cory confessed he aimed to kill as many white men as possible. When asked why he attacked Mark Gassett again, while he was already wounded on the ground, Cory proudly said he wanted to ensure he was dead, comparing it to how the coronavirus is killing white men. During his sentencing, Cory was seen laughing and giggling, showing he might still be proud of his actions against the so-called white devils. He also blew kisses and grinned at everyone in the courtroom, showing signs of a psychopath with little remorse. Cory was found guilty of second-degree murder for the deaths of Carl Williams, Mark Gassett, and Zachary Randles, and first-degree murder for the death of David Jackson, with added charges for committing hate crimes based on race. He was also guilty of 4 counts of attempted second-degree murder. Cory received a life sentence without the chance of parole. Mark Anthony Gonzalez was accused of fatally injuring Bexar County Sheriff's Sergeant Kenneth Van in 2011 and faced a murder charge. He attacked Van in May 2011, resulting in immediate fatality. Due to the sensitive nature of the case, both defense and prosecution agreed to conduct the hearing in private. Gonzalez's mental competency was closely examined to determine his ability to stand trial. The trial assessed whether the death penalty, already handed down, was suitable given his mental condition. Recordings of phone calls where Gonzalez discussed the case and the jury were played in court as part of the proceedings.
Good jury. We took 5 weeks to pick this jury, so it's a 50-50 chance, you know what I mean?
The recording and Steve Starling's testimony in Judge Mary Roman's courtroom, where Gonzalez chuckled and said, "I killed a cop, don't tell anyone, not even your wife," undermined his defense in the competency trial. On sentencing day, Yvonne Van, Sergeant Van's wife, was also given the opportunity to address the court.
I'll never have any more alone time with my husband, and my time now is truly alone in every sense of the word.
She spoke about forgiveness and the difficulty of forgiving a man who had abandoned her and her child. Now, here's the official decision from Judge Mary Roman.
You are hereby sentenced in accordance with Texas law to death.
Throughout the court proceedings, Gonzalez remains mostly silent. His calm demeanor would almost be impressive if it weren't so chilling. Now, he is destined for Texas death row. In Tampa Bay, Florida, Joshua Hacken, an engineer by day and self-proclaimed prophet and Freemason by night, faced charges including 2 counts of kidnapping, burglary of a dwelling with assault and battery, and grand theft auto. Hacken and his wife, Sharon Hacken, allegedly abducted their 2 sons and sailed to Cuba, prompting what officers termed a forced weekend getaway. The incident stemmed from the Hackens losing custody of their sons after prior encounters with law enforcement. The saga began in 2012 at a Slidell, Louisiana hotel where police found Joshua Hacken intoxicated with an illicit substance and illegal weapons. His wife exhibited bruises and spoke incoherently about being in witness protection. Authorities removed the children from the Hackens, placing them in their grandparents' custody. However, in April 2013, Joshua Hacken broke into his mother-in-law Patricia Hauser's home, restrained her with zip ties, and fled with the boys. They rendezvoused with Sharon, and the family embarked on a 330-mile sail to Cuba aboard a 25-foot sailboat. Upon his sentencing, Joshua Hacken delivered a lengthy, bizarre statement resembling a 30-minute rant. He declared himself a prophet, warned of impending end times, and made references to Greek mythology, the Abrahamic religions, claiming to have been reborn twice, survived attempts on his life, and witnessed animals bowing down to him.
I am Mithras. I am the Mahdi to the Shia Muslims. I am the Yeshua or Joshua to the tribe of Judah. I am the Pahana, or the true white friend to the Hopi. I am the Lucifer or morning star to the Freemasons. I have many names for many different religions, all awaiting my appearance among them.
Joshua Hacken, 36, appeared to have been awaiting the right audience for much of his life. It came as little surprise that both Joshua and his wife, Sharon, educated as engineers, embraced a multitude of conspiracy theories. They alleged that U.S. officials sought to manipulate American minds through chemtrails from airplanes, harbored fears of retaliation, and asserted they were under surveillance by the CIA.
But I must now reveal these secrets, regardless of how you take the news and what you decide to do to me. I know the Christians who have been so tragically misled and misguided as to call the prophet Jesus the Son of God will think me evil. that those that blaspheme and make God's servants into gods will take their misguided beliefs to their illogical conclusion and call me Antichrist.
Following Prophet Joshua Hacken's lengthy sermon, the judge sentenced him to serve up to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to charges of kidnapping, burglary of a dwelling with assault and battery, and grand theft auto. In addition to his prison term, Hacken was also placed on 15 years of probation. In Rhode Island, the unusual case of Joseph Lincia, the leader of the Rhode Island Hells Angels, unfolded with multiple serious charges against him. He faced assault with intent to murder, assault with a dangerous weapon, discharging a weapon during a violent crime, and carrying a pistol without a permit. These charges stemmed from two incidents, a 2019 attack and a 2020 fight outside a Providence strip club. His troubles began in 2019 when he fired at an unidentified victim. That morning, the victim, Richard Starnino, was driving a Mack semi-truck past the Hells Angels clubhouse on Wendell Street. Lincia, standing on the sidewalk, drew a .25 caliber semi-automatic weapons and fired at the truck. Starnino managed to drive away, turning onto Messer Street, while Lincia retreated back into the clubhouse. The Rhode Island State Police Tactical Team later investigated the incident and executed a search warrant at the clubhouse on Messer Street.
Anyone inside 161 Messer Street? This is the state police. Come out with your hands up. Do it now.
During the search of the clubhouse, investigators found 3 weapons and various types of ammunition. They also discovered the .25 caliber bullet fired by Lincia, embedded in the passenger side door of the truck. Initially, Lincia was released on bail, but his troubles didn't end there. In 2020, he was involved in an altercation at a clubhouse, which led to a violation of the terms of his 2019 bail release.
Off-duty member of the nightclub security in the face.
The lawyer argued that the man whom the defendant attacked was a known criminal.
It's presumed innocent and has an unblemished criminal record.
Lancia's lawyer argued that the victim had threatened to harm the Hells Angels members, justifying Lancia's actions.
Angel members, all of them, were in high alert at this point, knowing his history to carry firearms.
However, the court was not convinced by the arguments presented and decided to hold him without bail, expressing concerns about the risks if he were released.
The court's not satisfied that if he were to be released on bail, that he is going to abide by any terms and conditions that were placed on him.
In 2022, Joseph Lancia requested that Judge Kirsten E. Rogers, presiding over his case, recuse herself due to a potential conflict of interest. Her husband was a lieutenant in the Rhode Island Police Department. However, Judge Rogers chose not to recuse herself, citing insufficient evidence of bias. Before the judge finalized her ruling, Lancia opted to plead no contest to the charges against him, believing that he would receive a harsher sentence if the case proceeded to trial.
A 5-year full sentence, all of which is to be served at the ACI.
In his plea deal, Joseph Lancia was sentenced to 15 years at the adult correctional institutions, with 5 years to be served and the remaining 10 years on probation. Additionally, he received a 3-year prison sentence for the assault charge, with 1 year to be served concurrently with the previous sentence. The judge also imposed a no-contact order between Lancia and the victim, Richard Starnino, to prevent any further interactions between them.
There is a no-contact order for the protection of Richard Starnino for the duration of 8 years.
The judge also ordered Lancia to pay $3,650 in restitution. During the sentencing, Lancia declined to address the court and maintained a very straight face, showing almost no emotion. David Chalue is part of a trio with Caius Veiovis and Adam Lee Hall, all involved in a murder. Chalue, a 47-year-old from North Adams, faced trial as the second defendant in a 2011 triple homicide case that gained national attention due to the gruesome nature of the murders. The disfigured bodies of 3 men from Pittsfield, David Glasser, Robert Chadwell, and Edward Frampton, were found in Beckett in August 2011. Police and prosecutors stated that the victims were abducted, attacked, and mutilated. Prosecutors claimed Chalue was one of the men who carried out the murders. Chalue denied the charges of murder and related offenses. David Casey, a key witness, described how Chalue and Hall dismembered the 3 men, cutting off their legs, hands, and heads. One of the killers reportedly said he slept well after the murders. Shalu's lawyer argued that the witnesses were jailhouse informants and unreliable. Prosecutors said Hall, the main suspect, wanted Glasser dead to stop him from testifying in another case, and the other two victims were killed to eliminate witnesses. Berkshire District Attorney David Capeless recommended 3 consecutive sentences with no chance of parole. Hampton Superior Court Judge C. Jeffrey Kinder agreed, saying each victim's life needed to be recognized. Kinder called the murders extremely cruel and noted that Shalu preyed on the disabled and controlled young women. Kinder said he would not hesitate to give the harshest sentence possible in Massachusetts. Capeless agreed, urging the court to show no mercy, noting that Shalu had shown none to the victims. After long deliberations, the jury gave their verdict.
Premeditation with malice aforethought. Mr. Foreman, was this the verdict of the jury? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, was this your verdict? Yes. And was this verdict unanimous? Yes. You, the jury, further find that your guilty verdict of murder in the first degree is also based upon a theory of extreme atrocity or cruelty. Was this the verdict of the jury, Mr. Foreman? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, was this your verdict? Yes. And was this verdict unanimous? Yes.
As the verdict was read by the judge, Shalu showed no emotion. He simply didn't care. Shalu received 3 life sentences for his crimes. However, he is not giving up. He wants his sentence overturned and has taken his case to the Supreme Court. Shalu appealed his conviction, citing several errors from the original trial that influenced the outcome. However, the Supreme Court rejected the appeal, stating that the first-degree murder verdicts were just. During the appeal, Shalu's lawyer argued that several mistakes were made during the original trial that affected the outcome.
With regard to the photos of the weapons, this court found error in both the Viovis and Hall decisions with the court's admission of the evidence of the studded baseball bat. That evidence was admitted here, but unlike in the cases of Viovis and Hall, the forensic testimony here was not the same.
Specifically, he argued that the judge gave improper instructions to the jury, allowed the admission of unfairly prejudicial character evidence, and rejected the prosecution's argument regarding statements made by Hall. Additionally, the appeal claimed that the prosecution made multiple inappropriate statements during their opening and closing arguments. The court reviewed the 2013 trial and concluded that there were no grounds to overturn the convictions or reduce the sentences. Humberto Delgado was accused of murdering a Tampa police officer in 2009. He faced charges of premeditated murder, aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, carrying a concealed weapon, and depriving an officer of his means of protection. Corporal Mike Roberts had stopped Delgado on that day while he was pushing a shopping cart. Roberts attempted to question Delgado, but Delgado resisted, leading to a struggle that tragically ended with Corporal Roberts losing his life.
Lie on the ground, helpless and unmoving. He took that .45 caliber pistol and he took the shot.
The defense countered by arguing that Delgado suffered from mental illness. According to their case, Delgado believed that the police, and inexplicably, the rapper 50 Cent were pursuing him.
He became something of what you would call a conspiracy theorist. And virtually every place he went, he believed there were people who were Masons who wanted him to join them and become a Mason, and when he wouldn't, then those people took it out on him.
The defense pursued an insanity defense, but it faced challenges because Delgado had been quoted saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." The prosecution argued that this statement indicated Delgado was in a stable state of mind. Ultimately, the judge's decision would determine the outcome of the case.
For the murder of Corporal Michael Roberts, this court sentences you to be put to death in the manner prescribed by.
As seen in the video, Delgado remained unfazed, only cracking his neck during sentencing. However, in 2015, the Florida Supreme Court overturned the death penalty, sentencing him instead to life in prison without parole. We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, where 29-year-old local Alonzo Perez is in police custody. He's charged with killing 3 people and several other crimes, including armed robbery, attempted murder, battery, grand theft, and conspiracy. The first murder happened when Perez and a woman went to a McDonald's, and 31-year-old Muhammad Robinson didn't hold the door open for the woman. This led to a heated argument and Perez allegedly attacking Robinson, resulting in fatal injuries. About 3 hours after the incident with Robinson, Perez attacked 50-year-old Jeffrey Johnson. Johnson had just arrived at a friend's house with his wife on his motorbike. As Johnson walked toward a man standing in the yard, he was struck twice in the head. Police found that the bullet casings from Johnson's attack matched those from Robinson's fatal incident. These shells were also linked to other violent events that month, including the fatal incident involving Candelario Duran. The FBI caught Perez and turned him over to North Vegas police for questioning. Left alone, handcuffed to a metal bar in the interrogation room, Perez got restless. Despite the unlikely odds, he managed to break free from the cuffs by using his body weight to snap the chain. With the cuffs broken, Perez then waited and watched, hiding his free hands and acting calm. After a few minutes, he climbed up to the ceiling and escaped through there. He drove off in a rental truck that was left running outside. The police took about 40 minutes to notice his escape, which showed a big oversight. After 5 days on the run, Perez was caught at an apartment complex. Although initially facing the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the murders and received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. Hampton Superior Court is where the accused, Lee Rios, awaits a final verdict from Judge Constance M. Sweeney. In 2015, Rios, a notorious member of the Latin Kings gang, was charged with the murder of 18-year-old Kenneth Lopez in Springfield, Massachusetts. Prosecutors stated that although Rios and Lopez were friends, Rios had a motive to kill Lopez due to a dispute. After the incident, Rios boasted about the killing to fellow gang members. He was soon arrested and charged with the murder. The prosecution argued that Rios showed no remorse for the crime and had a history of violence and gang activity. They presented evidence that Rios had carefully planned the murder, including purchasing the weapon used and scouting the location where Lopez was attacked. During the trial, Rios claimed he was not present at the time of the incident, but the jury rejected his defense due to substantial evidence, including weapons and ammunition found in his apartment during a police search. His defense attorney argued that the evidence against him was based on the testimony of people seeking reduced sentences for their cooperation. However, the judge did not accept this argument.
There are few, if any, comments, Mr. Rios, that I can think of that would carry the full weight and import of the sentence that I'm about to deliver. As Attorney Stan has, I believe, correctly noted, yours will not simply be a sentence for life, but a very difficult one in light of the facts underlying this particular case.
Rios was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was read, he remained silent with his hands cuffed behind his back. He appeared determined to accept the sentence stoically, looking straight ahead without much blinking or showing any facial reactions. When the judge finished, Rios was ushered out of the court, maintaining a calm but melancholic demeanor. We're in Florida for the sentencing of 18-year-old Conrad Schaefer. 3 years ago, he was involved in random attacks in Osceola County that resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent bystanders. He faced charges of 2 counts of first-degree murder. After hearing about the devastating impact on the families of the 2 victims, who were both students, Conrad Schaefer apologized to them in court.
Sorry for the things I've done. And I know I did wrong, and I know my apology don't mean nothing to you. And I know it ain't gonna change how you feel about me. But I just feel like I need to apologize, and I really am sorry for what I've done.
After hearing Schaefer speak, Orange Osceola State Attorney Jeff Ashton questioned his sincerity and labeled him a sociopath. Ashton argued that the only way to guarantee community safety was to imprison Schaefer for life. The judge agreed with this argument and sentenced Schaefer to 2 consecutive life terms. In Las Vegas, Richard DeVries was taken into custody on felony charges, including racketeering. The reputed president of the Las Vegas Hells Angels, DeVries, was arrested during a court hearing in October 2020. He, along with 7 others, was indicted on racketeering charges linked to a May incident on a Henderson highway. Some charges carry enhancements for promoting or assisting a criminal gang. The racketeering charges include conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, battery, and discharging a weapon at or into an occupied structure. Prosecutors accused Hells Angels members, including DeVries, of opening fire and injuring 6 Vagos motorcyclists on May 29th on US Highway 95 west of Wagon Wheel Drive.
Know that a month back, about a month ago in San Bernardino, a Vagos did kill a Hells Angel.
Prosecutors suspected that the incident could have been in retaliation for an event in San Bernardino that resulted in the death of a Hells Angels motorcyclist. However, a Vagos member disputed this claim during a grand jury hearing in June. According to court transcripts, During Memorial Day weekend, a group of bikers, including Hells Angels members, rode through Arizona and northern Nevada. Evidence presented to the jury reportedly showed Hells Angels members at a Henderson Harley-Davidson dealership moments after the incident. Additionally, an anonymous witness provided a video showing 3 men dressed in Hells Angels attire approaching the Vagos group, with one appearing to hold an object in their left hand just before the altercation began. Police found multiple bullet casings fired over a mile along the highway. It was unclear if the Vagos group had responded or if all reported injuries were related to the altercation. 2 people were in critical condition and hospitalized. During the initial court hearing, Judge David Gibson Sr. had this to say:
I believe that there is clear and convincing evidence that all of these defendants are a danger to the community.
DeVries was initially arrested along with Stephen Alo and Russell Smith, who prosecutors identified as prospects for the Hells Angels. However, the prospects were released from custody after posting $75,000 bail each. During the indictment, prosecutors accused the Las Vegas Hells Angels chapter of operating as a criminal syndicate over 3 years. They claimed that DeVries was involved in directing, supervising, and financing the organization. He was also said to have incited violence or encouraged others to do so to gain status within the Hells Angels hierarchy, or to target members of the Vagos Motorcycle Club.
All the defendants in this case that are currently before Your Honor today have been charged with racketeering. The Hells Angels has been deemed by the Clark County Grand Jury to be a criminal syndicate.
The defense had this to say:
Angels Motorcycle Club has not been found by a jury in the state of Nevada to be a criminal gang.
Later on, District Judge Tiara Jones denied a motion to recall an arrest warrant for DeVries. During the court proceedings, Judge Jones ordered DeVries to be taken into custody and set his bail at $250,000. Like most of the other Hells Angels members, DeVries showed no emotion and appeared cooperative. There's no news of him posting bail, meaning he's being held indefinitely until his next court date. Next, we'll talk about the disturbing murder carried out by Malik Terrell, an adult who killed a teenager.
Malik, you ruined my life. You took my baby, my only son. He didn't deserve that.
Malik Terrell faced first-degree intentional homicide charges for brutally killing Dennis King. Terrell allegedly used a hammer, beat, stabbed, and burned King to death in an abandoned building. He then disposed of King's body in a garbage can. The motive behind this heinous crime arose from Terrell and his younger brother's belief that King was involved in stealing a video gaming system, which sparked a conflict. Terrell lured King to a location under false pretenses and assaulted him to force a confession. King was reported missing on May 19, 2018, and his charred remains were found later in an abandoned house in Milwaukee. Terrell fled to Chicago, but was captured there on May 21, 2018. He was extradited back to Milwaukee and charged with first-degree intentional murder. In court, Terrell showed no remorse for the murder, apologizing to King's family while also attempting to blame King for initiating the violence.
Apologize, like I said, for taking his life. And it wasn't over no video game. You right, it was cause he came back to my house and tried to attack me.
Terrell was indirectly blaming the victim and stating it directly to the victim's mother. According to King's relatives, Terrell was a bully who disliked King because he couldn't control him.
On a scale of 1 to 10 for homicides, this is about a 15. When he gets a chance to make a statement to the court, he feigns remorse and then tries to blame the 15-year-old.
Due to Terrell's lack of remorse and his insensitive remarks, the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge made it clear that Terrell would never be able to request supervised release, a decision that was met with applause in the courtroom. It's tragic to consider that all of this stemmed from a dispute over a video game.
He's going to serve a life means life sentence. I'm not allowing this defendant to ever petition for extended supervision.
The judge described the crime as exceptionally heinous and terrible. In addition to a life sentence without parole, Terrell was ordered to pay $3,449.48 in restitution to the Crime Victims Compensation Fund. However, the financial penalties were seen as insignificant compared to the emotional cost of losing a loved one. Alongside Terrell, his mother and younger brother pleaded guilty to aiding him in the crime. His mother received a 3-year prison sentence, while his younger brother was sentenced to 18 months. A man unexpectedly passed away in court just after receiving his sentence. Surprisingly, he didn't die from a heart attack or any other common cause. I'll show you the clip, and then you can share your thoughts on what you think happened.
Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor.
Michael Marin was on trial for arson, accused of burning down his own house to claim insurance money. When the jury declared him guilty, he discreetly took something by mouth. It was later found out through an autopsy that he had ingested cyanide. He died in the courtroom within 15 minutes of taking the substance. Marin was looking at a prison sentence of 21 years, which he might have reduced with good behavior. However, his relatives mentioned to the media that he had said he couldn't bear the thought of returning to jail. Indiana Sprules, a 22-year-old mother, faced a judge after her son was accidentally harmed and lost his life due to an incident involving his 6-year-old brother and her loaded weapon. During the court appearance, tears streamed down her face as a not guilty plea was entered on her behalf. She is charged with child endangerment and a weapon violation due to the tragic incident. This happened in Newark, New Jersey, where Judge James Convery was handling a messy divorce case involving Benjamin Taylor. Benjamin and his lawyer, Yvette Ramos Alvarez, were on one side, while his soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer were on the other. During the hearing, the wife's lawyer asked for Benjamin's Social Security earnings statement to confirm his income for the year. Benjamin's lawyer said they didn't have the statement, and that's when the judge responded.
Ms. Kolsky comes back after everything was finished except for the Social Security earnings statements, which he doesn't have.
He gets his Social Security every year indicating.
The earnings statement.
He gets his earnings statement. He gets it. He gets it every year. So she asked for it. Why didn't he provide it?
He doesn't have it.
He threw it away?
I would presume he did.
Oh, come on.
Here, it looks like a judge is frustrated with a lawyer and their client. Typical courtroom drama, honestly. The judge doesn't believe the statements can't be found, so Judge Karen decides to poll the courtroom to see who has their statements.
Don't you get it? I get it. You get it? You get it? Everybody gets it. Social Security sends it to your home every year.
But Yvette Ramos Alvarez disagreed. She said she received hers at home 4 years ago, but hadn't gotten another one for the next 3 years.
No, I don't get it. They sent it to my home 4 years ago. I haven't received it in the last 3.
That's when the judge crossed the line and did this.
When did you become an illegal alien?
Alvarez was shocked, especially from someone expected to be more knowledgeable. As a Hispanic woman and former president of the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey, she felt deeply offended. After a brief silence, she responded.
Judge, I am going to... That was a totally inappropriate comment.
I didn't mean it. Listen to me.
Then she left the courtroom. Racism is bewildering. One moment, the judge was discussing Social Security earnings statements. The next, he was questioning the attorney about her immigration status. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes. Alvarez came back later, but the harm was done. She filed a misconduct complaint against Judge Convery, resulting in a public reprimand from the New Jersey Supreme Court. In my opinion, it wasn't sufficient punishment. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay updated with our latest videos.